Hey folks, we're looking at Angular today, slicing it up. This was a request from viewers, and I am complying. I am in compliance. We do a request every at the end of every month. You can make a request. The easiest way to do that is on the Discord. You can also try leaving a comment. Requests go on a list. It's not a queue. It's just a list, and then voting is done by donations to the channel. So that's how we do things here. That's how we keep it smooth and glide along. And Angular, I've never used. We have done a lot of other JavaScript frameworks. I'm not a JavaScript developer, so I'm no expert in this field. What we're going to do is just go through the code and peek through it. But if you want to see things like React or several others, I don't want to misremember which of the big repos we've done, but we've done quite a few of the big JavaScript framework repos. Angular, my impression is that it's a little bit more enterprise-ish, maybe a little bit clunkier, at least, or maybe that was the older version. I don't know. I don't know what to expect. I know it's a Google code base. Wait, why can't they pop out this chat here? Live chat is not currently available, although here it is. Okay, so for some reason I can't pop out the chat. It might get covered up or something. If so, I apologize. So back to what I was saying. I think this might be a little bit, it'll probably look more like a Google code base compared to the typical framework code base we've looked at. It may look more corporate and larger because it's targeting kind of more, to some extent, is targeting more corporate environments. I do see it's nearly 90% TypeScript with some plain old JavaScript, some Starlark. I'm guessing they have some sort of build rules. I don't know if they literally use Bazel, but that's some of the stuff we see. It's the modern developer's platform. It's for building mobile and desktop web applications. Okay, wait. Was that using TypeScript and other languages? I thought I said some other languages, which would make it a little bit more informal than it already is, but that's fine. They know what they're doing. All right, I don't know where to start. I did see Gemini, which is a little bit interesting to me because I know a lot of the open source projects are saying they don't want AI contributions, but of course, Angular and Gemini are both Google. Have fun is set to false. Code review is not disabled. The comment severity threshold is medium. I'm guessing this is a config for like a Gemini worker GitHub plugin thing. Okay. Now. Is there a big Gemini.md file? No. Okay, cool. So let's jump into, I'm not really sure I remember where JavaScript keeps stuff. It might be in packages or modules. It's certainly not in third party. Dev. Okay, let's try packages. This looks promising. Angular. The sources for these packages are in the main Angular repo. Isn't that this? Okay. Is this the same one? I think so. Maybe this is for distribution, just to link back to the to link back here. Wait, where did it go? I don't know. Okay, and then it doesn't look like modules has much of anything. We've got some benchmarks and utilities and other benchmarks and a playground. That's nothing. Dev, I'm going to guess, is not so important. Oh, angular.dev. I'm assuming this is just the website, the promotion website. Hang on one second here. Okay. Sorry about that. There's too much glare and it's getting into my eyeballs. All right, so I think all of the good stuff is probably in packages. And I did something to click away from packages, and then I couldn't find my way back. Although there is Angular. No, that's just the name of the repo. Here. Wait, what? It's because files are listed after folders. So I'm pretty convinced that everything is here. We have animations, bench press. I'm guessing is some benchmark thing. Common might be cool. Compiler, CLI, compiler. I don't know what exactly we are compiling. I don't know if that, I doubt that's for development. I wonder if that's part, like a first class part of like rendering. And then we have elements, examples, forms, language service, localize, miscellaneous, platform, browser dynamic, platform browser, platform server. Did I successfully open that? We have a router, whatever SSR is, but it seems to just have a doc folder, some stuff for service workers, zone.js. I'm also not sure what that is. And those seem to be the main folders. So let's check them out. Okay, animations is probably not the place to start, but I guess since we're here, we can look at a couple. We have private export, animation builder, animation events. So this is going to be presumably some sort of clock. What's the year? It doesn't have a license year. We have a total time, to state, from state. Okay, so this is like a building like a Markov sort of model, the state machine where you're transitioning from one state to another. It's not random, so I guess it's not like a Markov model. And then we have the names of phases. I don't know if anywhere we've registered all the possible phases. Whatever an element is, the element to which the animation is attached. So this is maybe like a parent reference into some tree. A trigger name, which seems to be internal, and whether it's disabled, which is also internal. Okay, that's pretty simple for an animation event. And then animations.ts is big. How big is this? Over, oh no, 53 lines. It's hard to tell because I'm so zoomed in now. I tried to zoom in because it was hard to, it was a bit hard to see on the screen, but now it's a little bit hard to see how, it's a little bit harder for me now since I'm not used to everything being so up close and in my face. So there's not much here. We do see that it seems to be keyframe animation. There's a query. I don't know what a query is. Sequence and stagger, style and transition. And presumably that's somewhere Here's an animation player. On destroy, init, on done. This is some sort of interface for the animation player. Pause, restart. Okay, so this is basically just defining an interface, and then once you know what this interface is going to be, I think a lot of this would be a little bit straightforward to implement. We have microtasks, queue microtask, trigger microtask, init, play, and so on. I'm not really sure what a microtask is, if this is something that is implemented in this repo or if it's a library, but it's something. And then how about common? Common looks promising. Let's pop this out. We have HTTP, locales, and source. How about source? What do you think? DOM adapter. Okay, so we've got DOM stuff, cookie stuff, navigation stuff, which is, there's also the router, something or other. I don't remember if it was a folder or a file. Viewport scroller, presumably for scrolling the viewport, and pipes and navigation and directives. I don't know what a directive is. This is internationalization. Location. We'll see what kind of location it's referring to. Here's DOM adapter. Presumably adapter in the sense of the adapter pattern. We can get DOM. We can set the root DOM adapter. On and cancel. Okay. You can get the user agent get cookie. So this is again just some interface. This looks like it was written by Java people. Here's platform navigation. What do we have here? We've got this use factory thing. It's injectable. Again, this looks a little bit like the Google Java style. I'm guessing injectable is maybe something like dependency injection. This class wraps the platform navigation API, which allows server-specific and test implementations. Browser support is limited, so this API may not be available in all environments. Okay. But the platform navigation, I guess platform in the sense, platform often means like platform specific or like runs natively. I'm not sure if that's what it means in this case, but it seems to just be some interface that allows you to have a common interface for different platforms, like whether you can go back, go forward, navigate, etc. It's an abstraction maybe over the individual browsers. Here's viewport scroller. I'm going to guess this is also an interface. No, we have an abstract class. Is that different? We have some such stuff about desugared tree shakeable injection. No collapse. We also have pure or break my code, which I'm assuming is some sort of hint that means it should be pure. And if for some reason it can't be made pure, you're allowed to like crash or something. But I don't, presumably this was added to debug some, or to solve some bug on some platform. I'm not really sure what is going on there. But we have a viewport scroller, and whatever ng server mode is, we're going to use a null. If it's undefined, we'll use a null viewport scroller. Otherwise, we're going to use the browser viewport scroller, presumably letting the browser handle the scrolling. And you can do things like get scroll position, set offset. So this really is scroll to position. This really is an interface under the hood. Like when you get down to it, I mean. Wait, is that null? Is this the null one? No, that's the abstract class. And then here we have a non-abstract class, I guess. Do we have any actual implementation? If you call get scroll position, we're going to call this.window scroll x, this.window scroll y. And I think that's now stuff that the browser handles, because we're calling this.window stuff. I don't really know anything about browser scrolling, but I'm going to guess that that's built in somehow. Under directives, ng is, I don't know what NG is. Oh, is it? Oh, is NG supposed to be? Is it called Angular because they wanted a two-letter prefix and they chose NG? Did it originally stand for Net Google or something internally? We have NG plural, NG if. I don't know what this is. Are these like logical connectors to be used at the level of widgets or something? The structural directive that conditionally includes a template based on the value of an expression coerced to Boolean. Okay, so we have some expression. We're coercing it to Boolean. I assume that coercion is done by like evaluating some expression. But maybe we'll see contrarily. It's a structural directive. I don't know what that means. It's going to conditionally include some stuff, as in, which one is this? Is this still if? Well, the file name is if. I don't know what we're actually looking at the comment for yet, but, and what is it conditionally including a template? If I understand English correctly, those are all, that's kind of, that makes sense. When the expression evaluates to true, Angular renders the template provided in a then clause, and when false or null, Angular renders the template provided in an optional else clause. So it's kind of Lispy, if then else sort of style, but for templating, and not at the level of JavaScript, at the level of something else, templates and directives. Let's look up Angular directives. Let's look it up together, shall we? Angular directives. Overview. Directives are classes that add additional behavior. It is Halloween when I'm recording this. It will not be when I post it. Hopefully it'll not be Christmas, but it'll be something. Okay. They had added additional behavior, blah, 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 blah. I clicked on it, but I really just meant to read it. Additional behavior to elements in your Angular applications. Use Angular's built-in directives to manage forms, list styles, and what users see. They are classes that add additional behavior to elements. I shouldn't have hit my microphone with my coffee, but I did. That's how it is. Okay, so what are the common ones? We have components used with a template. This type of directive is the most common directive type. We have attribute directives. Let's see what components is. Every component must have a TypeScript class with behaviors, such as handling user input and fetching data from a server, an HTML template that controls what renders into the DOM, and a CSS selector. So we have at component, so this is some kind of decoration. The selector is profile photo. Okay. Presumably this is like a CSS class. The template is we're going to add an image source tag that says profile photo.jpg. I don't know if this means that everyone has the same profile photo, and it has some alt text. So what are we doing? We're just essentially decorating some class. I guess this is the idea is that the profile photo is going to be the implementation of something. I don't know quite what. Maybe it's going to generate profile photo or download it. But at any rate, we're somehow decorating profile photo with some behavior. And that behavior is that we're going to select the profile photo thingamajig and add this image tag to it. And yeah, okay, CSS selector that defines it. All right, so for full details, blah, 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 objects passed to the component decorator are called the component's metadata. And you can have things like styles, border radius, etc. I kind of want to know what the function is supposed to be doing, but maybe we'll see some of this in action. How about like, no, Angular component examples. There were examples in the repo. Example applications. I'm sure this is maybe just the stuff that's in the repo. Tour of heroes. Fundamentals. Live example. Download example. No, I don't want to I don't want to actually download it. Are you crazy? Okay, well, forget that. But that's sort of what these directives are. Here's how they're implemented. Let's see if we can see the implementation of the component. Is that what it was? Component. Here's ng component outlet. Optimized image index. This is the only component one. I don't know if this is the main component implementation though. It just says component outlet. And we're going to import a component ref, directive do check, etc. Okay. It instantiates a component type and inserts its host view into the current something something. And now I have to scroll to the right into the current view. ng component outlet provides a declarative approach for dynamic component creation. All right. Well, whatever that means. We'll move along. I don't think that's the main component thing, but if it is, we might be able to come back. Here's common source location. I don't know what they mean by location. Location strategy. Join / pop state event. Here's some stuff. A service that applications can use to interact with a browser's URL. So I'm guessing this is location in the sense of URL. Universal resource locator. Depending on the location strategy used, location persists to the URL's path or the URL's hash segment. It persists to the path or the hash segment. I'm not really sure what the hash segment of a URL is. It's better to use the router navigate service to trigger route changes. Use location only if you need to interact with or create normalized URLs outside of routing. So maybe for linking to other things. Location is responsible for normalizing the URL against the application space href. So for example, my app user /123 is normalized. Without the slash in front, it's not normalized. And with the slash at the end, it is not normalized. Okay. Who's responsible for this? Location, not your app. All right, great. Okay. So this is something about URLs. I don't know exactly how. This may be, it may have to do with how Angular uses URLs or just maybe general URL stuff. I guess it's maybe a little bit more like the first. And we also have pipes. And I don't think we looked at common.ts. We did look at DOM adapter. Okay. We have an async pipe, a JSON pipe, a number pipe, and a slice pipe. Now let's look at async pipe. I'm guessing this is for sending information like a Unix pipe. Subscription strategy. Create subscription. It will take an async subscribable of any or promise like of any. So this is for handling future unknown work, I guess. No, I think this is more for publish, subscribe, event sort of driven stuff. Subscribable strategy. Subscription can be side effectful, and we don't want any signal reads which happen in the side effect of the subscription to be tracked by a components template. And so on and so forth, I suppose. Okay, so this is communication stuff. Whatever common is, it's something. We're importing plural. That might be for making words plural. And we've got a bunch of this stuff. Provide Cloudflare loader, Cloudinary loader. Where is that coming from? And what is XHR? This is for XML HTTP requests. This is like what Ajax was built on. Okay, so that's some of the stuff. I feel like we are missing a whole lot of code that I don't know where it is yet. I don't think it's in HTTP. There's some HTTP-ish stuff. This is source again. Where did HTTP? This is going to be, I'm guessing, mostly like clients and stuff. We have the XHR, the Xsurf stuff, Interceptor. This is presumably for intercepting a request and doing middleware type stuff. Fetch is presumably for fetching things, like an HTTP client. Client is other client stuff, I guess. And backend is maybe a call specifically to the backend. Here's what is it? XHR. This should be the HTTP AJAX request. The HTTP XHR backend implements HTTP backend. You've got some sort of tracing service. Maybe propagate trace. Handle. This is some sort of generic handle function. It's going to take a request, which is an HTTP request of any. So maybe returning any type. And we've got this observable event any. I guess it will emit some sort of event or return an event. And if the request method is JSON-P, then we're going to say we're missing the JSON-P module. Why? I don't know. There's some comment that explains why, but I'm not going to look at it because it requires me to scroll to the right, which I refuse to do in principle. Validate the request is compatible with the XHR backend, which checks that we're in ng dev mode, and then we call this validated function. Stop doing this, GitHub. Check whether this factory has a special function to load an XHR implementation for various non-browser environments. We currently limit it to server XHR class. Maybe this is for running on the server. This is some factory thingy. And what? If we get done here, I think we're finally done juggling around the kind of bookkeeping, but we're going to call source.pipe and switch map, which seems like we're maybe switching on a map. And then we're going to return new observable by calling XHR factory build, calling XHR open with the request method and URL with parameters. So open is really kind of sending an RPC. The request method is the procedure we're calling, and then the arguments to the procedure are encoded in the URL itself with query parameters, I think is what is going on. And we're checking with some sort of credential, like do we need credentials or do we have credentials? One or the other, I'm not sure which one. And then we're going to add all the requested headers for the request, which came in the XHR thing, which I think was maybe passed in. No, somewhere. No, we're going to call, I think it's the thing we created. But we're passing in name and values at join. Where did the value, oh, no, okay. The request came in as an argument, and we're calling for each on it. I kind of glossed over that with my eyeballs. All right, and then we're checking for specific headers, checking for timeout, checking the response type. Okay, this is basically like a little RPC service, but this is, I don't know if, I think we no longer base the entire web on XHR, right? We have, among other things, WebSockets. I don't know if HTTP2 obsoletes some of this XHR stuff, but this is, I guess, kind of back in the day, one of the only things you could do, I believe. But that's kind of interesting from that perspective. It's kind of like an RPC library built on AJAX-y stuff, if I'm understanding it correctly. XSRF should be cross-site request forgery. I'm not sure. Request forgery, yeah. So this is just like a security prevention thing. I don't think we really need to look at it. It's not the most angular thing to check out. Interceptor, again, like I said, I'm going to guess we're going to do middleware type stuff. Intercepts and handles an HTTP request or HTTP response. Most interceptors transform the outgoing request before passing it to the next interceptor in the chain. This is a common pattern. By calling next.handle transformed rec, an interceptor may transform the response event stream as well. Okay, by applying additional RxJS operators on the stream returned by next handle. Oh, okay. What? I think this is saying that in your interceptor, you can tell the next interceptor to operate and then get its result and then operate on its result or something like that. More rarely, an interceptor may handle the request entirely and compose a new event stream instead of invoking next.handle. This is an acceptable behavior, but keep in mind that further interceptors will be skipped entirely. They'll be skipped and compose a new event stream. And okay. I don't really know how this works. By applying, so everyone is expected to call next.handle. So before passing it to the next intercept in the chain. So it's not like passing through a bunch of filters. It sounds like you're expected to. No, I think it is like passing through a chain of filters. Maybe I'm just misreading this, but I think when it says it may handle a request entirely, I think it means instead of passing it next at all, you can just return. Normally with a chain of filters, they're often like semantics, like you return true if you're finished processing, or vice versa, you return true if you're done processing, and that determines what goes next. It seems like here there's like an explicit invocation of the downstream handlers, which is a little bit stranger than I'm used to. There may be a reason for it, or these semantics may just have been defined before everyone converged on a different way to do it. Represents the next interceptor in an interceptor chain, or the real backend if there are no further interceptors. Most interceptors will delegate to this function and either modify the outgoing request or the response when it arrives. Within the scope of the current request, however, this function may be called any number of times for any number of downstream requests. Such downstream requests need not be to the same URL or even the same origin as the current request. It is also valid to not call the downstream handler at all and to process the current request entirely within the interceptor. This function should only be called within the scope of the request that's currently being intercepted. Yeah, okay. Well, I'm not going to dig too much into that. I find that a little bit fascinating. I attempted to, but I don't think that's what people really are the most interested in with respect to Angular. Here's fetch. I'm guessing this is just like fetching some stuff, like a fetcher. Fetch backend. Uses fetch to send requests to a backend server. I don't know if this is like just GET style requests. Here's some sort of like special casing for Node. I guess this is for running on the server. Run outside Angular. This is due to the Node.js fetch implementation. Undici, which uses a number of set timeouts to check if blah, 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 which causes extra CD cycles every 500 milliseconds. I'm guessing CD might be continuous delivery. This is maybe trying to avoid a bunch of timeouts that are run all the time in a testing environment or something. Okay, here's backend. This is presumably just going to make requests to a backend. A final HTTP handler, which will dispatch the request, blah, blah. Get rid of this. Interceptors sit between the HTTP client interface and the HTTP backend. So this is kind of like a sink. If you think of the HTTP client as a source of requests, go through some chain of filters. HTTP backend is like the sink. It's the last thing in the filter. I guess it can't call next, process request, or whatever the function is, because it is the last. It's the end of the line. It's going to send a request to the act. It's going to like send out the actual request. It does have a reference to the chain. We're going to call deduped interceptor function. Stop this, GitHub. We're going to call deduped interceptor functions. Reduce right, some sort of right reduction thing. And we're passing in these pairs, next sequenced function, interceptor function, and returning, this gives us a chained interceptor function. Where the last argument is this dot injector, etc., etc. If this dot contribute to stability, contribute to stability, what? Contribute to stability. Inject requests contribute to stability. I have no idea what that is, but it's presumably there for a reason. And then client, this should just be a standard HTTP client. We've got headers, context, parameters, report progress or not, with credentials or not, cache, mode, redirect, etc. Transfer cache, credentials, keep alive, and so on and so forth. Okay, so that's the client. Now, that's, I think, really all I want to see in the HTTP folder. And that leaves us with the directives, which we looked at and did not seem to be a whole lot of them. Plural. Oh, plural is maybe for multiple directives. Style and switch template outlet. ng plural. Let's see what ng plural does. Adds/removes DOM subtrees based on numeric value, tailored for pluralization. Okay, maybe it is like pluralization linguistically. Displays DOM subtrees that match the switch expression values, or failing that, DOM subtrees that match the switch expression's pluralization category. You must provide a container element that sets the ng plural attribute to a switch expression. And then they're linking this plural rules here. Unicode.org. 0, 1, singular, reporting defects, blah, blah, blah. Minimal pairs. Okay. Cool. So it is for pluralization. And that kind of leaves me where we were. So one thing we can do is we can go to the Git repo and just look at how big the things are. We'll Git. What if I just delete the Git directory? That would leave us with adev, which is the website. And then packages. We missed compile. I mean you. You missed compiler. No, I missed compiler. Or rather, I opened it and it's in the background. Zone.js, I have no idea what that is. We did look at common. We did not look at forms. Most of the forms content is in the tests. And then router. That's going to be navigation stuff. I don't think that's the main idea. I'm guessing, did we look at core? No. Did I miss core? Is it in packages? Core. Okay. Core and compiler. Do I still have compiler open? I don't know. Somewhere. Here's compiler. We get rid of these things to the left. What about to the right? Elements. Oh no. Yeah, that's going to be good. Platform browser. Probably we can ignore. Platform server. I am going to ignore. We do have router. Service worker I will ignore. Zone.js, I don't know what this is. Implements zones for JavaScript inspired by Dart. If you're using zone.js via unpackaged, blah, blah, blah. As Angular moves towards a zoneless application development model, Zone.js is no longer accepting new features, including additional patches for native platform APIs. Breaking changes. Okay, so they're moving away from zones. Whatever zones were, I don't know. There's something. Okay, and then the last thing we need to open up is core. Let's find core. Here we are. Okay. So I feel like core is really the place to start. In fact, I'm going to give it its own thing. And what do we have? Source primitives, resources schematics. I don't know what a schematic is. We also have globals. Primitives. We have things like DOM navigation, event dispatch, and signals. DI is maybe dependency injection. In DOM navigations, we just have navigation types, which is what? How big is this? 154 lines of code, so it's tiny. Is this basically an abstract? So it's some class we're extending event navigation extends event target. So I'm guessing it's done in an eventy way. We can navigate, giving the URL, blah, blah, blah. It's going to return a navigation result. As opposed to navigating, you're going to get, I guess, some sort of navigation result and have to handle it on navigate. I read that as on navigate. Navigation type from finished, etc. Okay, so do we have the navigation? What was it? Navigation decision? I'm not sure. Stop it, GitHub. Navigate event. Success, error, navigation result is what I wanted. Okay, so here's some interface in the, what? This is, where's navigation event? I mean, result. I clicked here and it took me to, oh, it's on 18. It's just not displaying in my browser. Okay, here we go. Navigation result. And we've got committed and finished. So committed is going to be some promise. That's a navigation history entry, and finished is some other promise. That is a navigation history entry. So promise is a lot like future. So it's a thing that will eventually be in addition to the history. I don't know if finished is. It kind of really depends on how they use it, but it may be something that happens after the navigation somehow, like or at the end of the navigation. I'm not sure what that's supposed to be. Schematics, we have migrations, collections, roll up, test, ng, generate migrations. I don't know. Is this like database style stuff, like permanent data? Converts the entire application to block control flow syntax. I don't know, but I don't think this is the most important thing. And then in core, is that where we've been the whole time? We have been in core. In core source and core global. Let's get rid of global. It doesn't look like it has much in it. And in core source, we have a bunch of stuff, including DI, hydration. Let's look at hydration. I will just verify what DI is. We have another compiler folder. We have change detection, presumably for detecting if something changed. We have animations, application is probably important. Internal, that might be important. Render and render 3. I'm guessing render 3 is maybe a more recent version of render. Testability, sanitization, cache, errors, transfer state render, R3 symbols. Presumably R3 is render 3. And what else? We've got compression. Tokens. Skip hydration. Oh, okay. So here's hydration. We have, so I think this is going to be like basically compressing and storing UI stuff and then decompressing it. It's got some API. It's got annotations. We've got compressions, event replay, and so on. Tokens and views. So we'll look at this briefly. Okay, we have an API. Is hydration DOM reuse enabled? Is I18 and blah, 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 blah. Okay. So this is just some Boolean for whether the hydration is enabled, whether the support runtime, whether the application is stable, timeout. That's not so interesting. There's some internationalization hydration code in a tree shakeable manner. Outputs the message with hydration stats into a console. Okay, but what is the actual API? Can I zoom out here a bit? Maybe not too much. Maybe this panel will tell me the API. There's not much here. With DOM hydration, use factory, use value, use factory, use factory, use factory, blah, blah, blah. With, okay, I don't know. Whatever this API is, I don't think it's for me. And annotate. You can get an SSR ID, generates a unique ID for a given TView, and returns this ID. The ID is also stored on this instance of a TView and reviewed in and reused in subsequent calls. Okay, so something about generating a unique ID. We have a hydration context, describes the context available during the serialization process. The context is used to share and collect information during the serialization. So we have a serialized view collection, is incremental hydration enabled, etc. So I said compress, but I think probably serialize is maybe the more general idea. We're taking like a thing that is a view and finding a way to write it down so that we can reconstruct that view. Here's something about annotating. Annotates a root level L container for hydration. I don't know what an L container is. Maybe like a list container. This happens when a root component injects view container ref, thus making the component an anchor for a view container. Okay, so they've got a view container ref. So it's a reference to some view container. I guess that makes it an anchor in the sense of a link. This function serializes the component itself as well as all views from the view container. Okay, and what does the serialization logic look like? I'm not sure. Annotate for hydration. Annotates all components bootstrapped in a given application ref with some hydration stuff. I'm not sure. Do we have a serialization thing? Serializes the L container data into a list of serialized view objects that represent views within this L container. Do we just have like a serialized method? Try serialize, serialized container view. I think this is maybe, are these imports or exports? Import. Where are we importing them from interfaces? Let's see if we can find interfaces. Here's compression. Compress node location. Helper function that takes a reference node location and a set of navigation steps. Okay, so that's specifically for node location. You can decompress node location. Oh, maybe this is all there is. It takes a reference node location and a set of navigation steps. Okay, so that's interesting. So it's kind of like a path from the reference node to a target node and outputs a string that represents a location. Okay, so for example, given reference node B, body, and path, first child, like sibling, the function returns B, F to N. So this is like a relatively simple custom custom compression, not like a general purpose compression algorithm. Here's event replay. I guess this is for storing events that might modify the thing that you're hydrating. A list of block events that need to be replayed, whatever a block event is, determines whether event replay features should be activated on the client. With event replay, requires hydration to be enabled separately. Okay. I don't know how we determine which events to replay, but I'm convinced that once you store them and have a way to replay them, that will work as long as the code is not buggy. Tokens is what? Internal token that specifies whether DOM reuse logic during hydration is enabled. Okay. it's got a new injection token Boolean. By default, in client rendering mode, we remove all the contents of the host element and render an application after that. Remove all the contents of the host element, okay? Internal token that indicates whether a hydration support for internationalization is enabled. Okay, so somehow you can create an injection token. It takes a Boolean. These are just computing specific Booleans. I don't know if we know where the injection token type is. Here, we're going to import it from DI injection token. Oh, okay. So injection token in the sense of we are, I guess, so remember what we're doing here is hydrating. I think we're just recording information about the dependency injection is what's going on. Here's views.ts. Maybe this is for hydrating and dehydrating views. Remove dehydrated views from cleanup. Given a current DOM node and a serialized information about the views in a container, walks over the DOM structure, collecting the list of dehydrated views. So we have some serialized information about a view. So we've done some sort of like what's like a graph traversal where we've written down the nodes and we've serialized them, and in order traverse pre-order traversal. I'm trying to think if there's like a more specialized name for that, but I think they're just called traversals or something. So given a current, so we have a serialization and a current node, and we're going to walk over the structure, I guess, in serialized form, or maybe we're going to turn it into a tree as we walk over it, collecting the list of dehydrated views. But why do we need a current DOM node to get the list of dehydrated views? All of this makes sense, except it seems to be relative to a node. I don't know if this is supposed to be like a root node, or we're collecting only views somehow downstream of this, which I guess would be more or less the same thing. But I'm just not sure how those two things relate to each other. Locate dehydrated views in container. So the DOM node should be like the first argument. So we have the current R node, and we are going to make an empty list of DA. Whoa, scrolling is now too fast because I'm so zoomed in. So now we have an empty list, and for all of the serialized views, somehow we can iterate over them, even though they are serialized. Serialized views is a serialized container view, which is a list. Okay, so it's already somehow a list. It has some structure. It's not just like a string. We've got this thing, repeats a view multiple times as needed based on the serialized information. For example, for star ng4 product views, star ng4 produce views. So I'm guessing this is for like a for statement on the level of views or something. Then we're going to iterate over the serialized view multiplier. And we're going to set the view to dehydrated container view of serialized view. First child is null. But where have we used so far? Where have we used current R node? Okay, move to the next node after this, which can be either the first node of the next view or an anchor comment node after the last view in a container. So we're going to set current R node to the sibling after serialized view, blah, 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 blah. And then we're going to push the view that we got here onto the stack, I guess, of dehydrated views. And then we're going to return the current R node with dehydrated views. But I feel like this code up here should have a current R node reference. But where does that happen? Oh, here. Is that right? If serialized view num_root nodes is bigger than 0, the first child will be the okay, here. we took the serialized views without any reference to the current node, and we dehydrated them, but set first child to null. And then we asked if in the serialized view, indexing at the number of root nodes is greater than 0, then we're going to keep a reference to the first node in this view, so it can be accessed while invoking template instructions. So I think it really is possibly something like a root node. I don't really know what first child means. It kind of really depends on how it's used. There's maybe some comment, but I'm thinking that's more or less what it's saying. Although I don't know. And what else do we have? Find matching dehydrated view implementation. I still don't think we've seen how you take an arbitrary view and serialize it. Clean up matching dehydrated views, etc. Okay, well, I don't know. Utils views, skip hydration, node lookup, interfaces. Was it interfaces? I'm not sure it was interfaces. At any rate, let's move on from hydration. Okay, so that's saving state essentially. DI must be dependency injection. I don't think I want to look into the dependency injection too much, but let's just verify that that's what this is. Concrete injectors implement this interface. Injectors are configured with providers that associate dependencies of various types with injection tokens. Guide, DI, dependency injection providers. Yes, that's what it is. Okay, let's move along. Compiler. We have a compiler facade and a compiler facade interface. What does that mean? I don't know. Okay, this is for JIT compilation. Okay, that could be cool. That could not be cool. And then change detection. We have things like lifecycle hooks, pipe transforms, provide check, no change, simple change. Okay. So this is different, for example, than how something like Flutter or maybe React handles change detection. I think in those frameworks, changes in the way to react to them are very closely built into the syntax, in a sense of like you have. In React, you have variables that if they change, they force a redraw of the UI, and I think Flutter is a bit similar. Although the syntax there doesn't look, the syntax doesn't necessarily look similar, but they have similar ideas. Here it looks like it's maybe going to be based a little bit more on things like messages being sent and subscriptions. Maybe like a little bit more manual work. Structural diffing for objects. Default iterable differs, etc. So let's try asking one of the AIs here. Describe how Angular determines whether something changed and UI needs to be redrawn. Gemini should know, since it should be trained on all the Google data. Delving into Angular's core. So it uses a method called change detection to determine when to update the UI. Here's a simplified breakdown. There's ngZone, which I think we no longer use. So it created zones. ngZone patches or modifies the common asynchronous behavior of APIs, such as set timeout, etc., and DOM events. Okay. There's a change detection cycle. An event happens, the user clicks a button, data arrives from an HTTP request, etc. Code executes. Your application logic runs. For example, an event handler updates a component property, such as this name is equal to new name, an event handler. So what we're missing is the thing between what we're missing is the thing between when the event happens and when the code executes. ngZone, so it notifies Angular when the asynchronous task finishes and the execution stack is clear. ngZone emits an unstable event. Okay, that must be what contribute to stability was. This event tells Angular, hey, something might have changed, it's time to check. Then Angular checks. It runs its change detection mechanism across the entire component tree, starting from the root component. And I guess this is one of the things that Flutter and React, I believe, do differently, which is that we don't have to check the whole tree. We have a clearer sense of what has changed and what needs to change downstream from that. It performs dirty checking. It compares the previous values of every data-bound property, for example, name or property equals value, with its current value. Okay. And then there's onPush. By default, using the default strategy, Angular checks every component from top to bottom, during every change. You can optimize this by setting a component strategy to change detection strategy on push. And then it will only happen when like input or clicks, etc., are changed. I believe Angular is moving away from zones. What's up with all this typing? What will the future change detection look like? I am correct. It's moving to a zoneless model, and the future of its change detection is built around signals. This new approach fundamentally changes when and how Angular checks for changes, moving from a broad check everything system to a precise targeted one. Okay. Whatever. Signals. Something is signaling something. That'll be good enough for me. Okay, so this does seem, in a sense, more complicated, more flexible, but also possibly more complicated, maybe easier to miss changes, maybe just inefficient if we have to check everything. In that sense, I can see the appeal of something like a competitor that came along and simplified the change detection stuff. I'm not going to dig too much into the change detection library, but that's at least an overview of how it works. And now we know at least where it is. An application doesn't seem to have much. We have application modules, application init. I think this is just modeling the idea of an application. As maybe a little bit like a root node with some special behavior. Internal, create application. Platform injector. This is also going to be an entry point for the environment, it looks like. It has to run on the different browsers. Possibly also on the server. There's some server stuff there. I don't really know what that was about. Application modules. Yeah, okay. So we'll ignore application. Internal doesn't have much. Render 3. This is going to be the rendering engine. And what else do we have? R3 symbols. We can ignore R3 symbols. So let's take a quick look at render. We're not going to really see a lot. We have state, T-node manipulation tokens, view context, view refs, standalone service, pure function, pipe profiler, node manipulation, index. I guess there's not really a lot that it has to do. I don't know what HMR is, because the hard rendering logic in terms of like drawing lines on the screen is going to be the browser. So what it has to do is it has to take its representation of Angular stuff and make it generate browsery stuff like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Node selector matcher, pipe profiler, view context. We'll take a quick look at it. Did I already open state? I'm not sure. Node manipulation. Is index ever interesting? Fields, error, def, getters, definition, DI. There's a component. Probably component is important. CodeGen API.md. Ivy exports a number of functions prefixed with EE. For example, 00. For example, is that theta? Theta element start. For whatever reason, it looks blurry on my screen. Okay, HMR.ts. All right, what do we have? HMR. What even is HMR? Replaces the metadata of a component type and re-renders all live instances of the component. Apply metadata is a callback that is invoked, blah, 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 blah. Merge with existing definition. I'm not sure. Create L view. Let's find out what an angular L view is. DuckDuckGo. Here. Okay, so this is related to Ivy. Whatever Ivy is. All about Angular Engine Ivy in 5 minutes. Wow, all about it in 5 minutes. Okay, so these seem to be some of the key concepts like tree shaking. It means removing unused code during the bundling process. I'll read this. We have locality is the process of compiling each component independently with its own local information that rebuilds faster by compiling partial changes and not the entire project files. And, okay. Ivy is the pipeline of rendering and compilation of the next generation. It is very advanced and offers advanced features that were not available before. Okay, so whatever L views are. Hey, stop that. Okay, a logical view, L view, represents the instances of a template, T view. Okay, okay, so there's the template, and then there's, I don't know if this is rendered or kind of in between. We use the word logical to highlight how the developer thinks about the application from a logical perspective. A parent component contains a child component. Okay, so none of this was really like super clear from the code, but I'll take their word for it that that's what's going on. I still don't know what HMR means. When it's an HMR related function and falls back. How about Angular HMR? HMR is a feature that allows you to update parts of your applications without reloading the entire page. Hot module replacement. Okay, we'll kind of ignore that for now. Here's node selector matcher. Is SSS class matching? Is projection blah, blah, blah? I don't know. Hashtag and match. Okay. I'm kind of feeling like I don't want to really go into the rendering pipeline, to be honest. View context. I think it's going to be mostly straightforward. I think we've seen a lot of stuff like it. It's kind of clear what it has to do. If you were to know the code, if you were to know the concepts of the code, I think a lot of it would be probably relatively straightforward to implement. There may be some algorithms that really, really matter, but I don't think that I don't think the code we are going to see is going to be like the most exciting. All implicit instruction state is stored here. There's some instruction state. Then we have an L frame. You stop this. Stores whether directives should be matched to elements. Okay, bindings enabled. Boolean. Directive should be matched to elements. When template contains ng non-bindable, then we need to prevent the runtime from matching directives on children of that element. Okay. And then we have stores to root T node, which is the template node that has the ng skip hydration attribute on it for later reference. Okay. So this is, I don't know if you have to have a skip hydration thing, but if you do, maybe, then you can. It's nullable. So you can store something that shouldn't be hydrated, and then everything under it should also not be hydrated, and which is why I think they need to only store the root node. And that's called instruction state. And I guess the fact that we're calling it instruction sounds like we're treating it like a CPU or compiler sort of thing. And check no changes mode. Off, exhaustive are only dirty views. Okay. So, in getting the elements, etc., enable OO, theta, maybe enable bindings, enter skip hydration block. Okay. So this is, it's not that it's uninteresting. I think it's probably very interesting, but I'm not sure that's where we want to spend our time, given that we're an hour in here. RxJS, is that the reactive JavaScript? I mean, not reactive, but like the use of JavaScript that looks like is this the syntax from React? I don't think it is. Maybe it's just reactive library. Reactive programming, something or other. For JavaScript. Okay, this is some reactive programming thing. And they have some interop. Maybe to handle like the differences in subscribers and stuff to make that kind of all work together. Did we completely look at source? I feel like we did. I think there's one more big thing though. I thought there was like a bunch of components that we still, compiler, I think we can get rid of. Maybe elements is what I'm thinking of. Router, I'm going to completely ignore. This is for the handling the transitions. It's probably relevant if you're debugging stuff. For the most part, I think we can we can intuit what the router would look like. I don't think there's really going to be any surprises there in that sense. And then in elements, we have component factory strategy. There's not much here either. Create custom element, element strategy. Okay. So how about we do like, is there anything that we're really missing? Common components. I don't know. I think we've seen kind of most of the stuff. It's such a huge repo that I don't think we were ever really going to cover everything in depth. On the React, I think it was the React video, there was specific interest in the rendering algorithm, which was or maybe it was scheduling algorithm, the kind of rendering / scheduling algorithm of when something changed and what needed to happen was kind of unique and different from other sorts of things. I have a feeling now, having looked at a bunch of Google, a bunch of Google repos and related repos, my sense is that we don't have to go into that stuff as much here because it's going to look pretty similar to what we've seen before. And I think that I'm just going to leave it at that. We're about an hour in, and I think that's a good first look at Angular. So I was expecting a little bit of more a crustier code base. This may be because they kind of did a rewrite, but the whole code base is clean. The way they do change detection does kind of give me the heebie-jeebies, in the sense that it's not clear to me that I would ever, like, even if I was a React developer, it seems like there would possibly always be kind of corner cases, maybe just on some devices, maybe just across the board. But it seems like if you look at where they're investing their time and the new initiatives, it seems that most of them are focused on changing, cleaning up, simplifying how they handle state changes and reacting to state changes. And probably the other main thing they have to think about is not necessarily backward compatibility in the sense that Angular 1 apps have to be run by the next iteration of Angular, but there should be the development mental model should be conceptually very similar. It shouldn't be like a completely different framework. So it should be Angular-ish with tweaks. So kind of balancing those two things, I think, is what it would look like if you were Google and trying to figure out where to position things, because obviously you don't want to just make a React clone, which is something they could have tried to do. But anyway, all right, so that's Angular. I hope you enjoyed poking around with me. I will see you guys again next week.